These are some helpful educational approaches for working with neurodivergent folks, as well as most of the rest of our population. One thing to keep in mind is the more ways that you convey information, the more likely you're going to get retention. And this is very true with certain neurodivergent issues, particularly those with attention deficit disorder, but not necessarily only them. So for example, if I was going to do a program on cattle conditioning, I would tell people, I would give them a handout, I would show them pictures, I might give them a job aid like you see in the lower left. I may have them watch videos and then take them out in the field and look at cattle and do it hands-on. Keep in mind that not everybody can sit still. A lot of times with our neurodivergent folks, they might be fidgeting or they might be doing something that would otherwise indicate that they're not paying attention, bored, or they're just not engaged. However, using manipulatives, fidget spinners and squeeze toys can help neurodivergent folks with their focus, and it can help reduce anxiety, and that makes for a better learning experience and for better knowledge retention. It's important to set the room. Whether you're indoor or outdoor, you need to avoid things that have loud noises, have a lot of background noise, or they're bright lights, or they're flashing or flickering light, or tight spaces. All of these things can cause additional anxiety for our neurodivergent colleagues and clients. Things to keep in mind, sometimes these can't be avoided, but do the best you can to reduce this and mitigate where necessary. It's important to present visual information clearly. A lot of times with PowerPoints especially, there's too much information. The background is not very good in terms of color choices. You've got text over pictures that's hard to read. Too many different things going on with animation, too much text, too many different fonts. All of those things can be really, really difficult for neurodivergent folks as well as the average public. We want fonts that are large enough to be seen clearly at the back of the room. We want to use sans fonts because they're cleaner and easier to read. Contrast is important, but black on white can be a little too stark for certain individuals. It's good to have contrast ratios that are 4.5 or higher. There are a number of online tools to determine contrast between text color and background color. Present knowledge in smaller chunks. If you can present things in small bits, it's much easier to understand and it's much easier to build on. Also tap into prior knowledge, especially if you're throwing out a new topic. Try and start with something that folks have a basic knowledge on and show how that relates to what you're teaching them. Use training aids like graphic organizers and charts and task checklists. And if you have to use a lot of jargon, give out lists with the jargon terms defined. If you have people who aren't necessarily in tune with the subject that you're teaching, you want to make sure that they have a reference that they can, in their hand, even if you've already defined what that piece of jargon is, having that definition list helps them refer back to it. Also, when you're doing instruction, show as you tell. Show people what you're doing, help them understand the process. When you ask questions, make sure they're open-ended and guided to steer them towards helping them realize their own answers, helping them realize the direction you want them to go. Give people time to process. Not everybody is going to give you a snap answer right away. Some people need time to process. And then when you have projects, make sure you're setting deadlines with reminders, because all of us, whether neurodivergent or not, can have issues with keeping track of things. Also, you want to provide options. One of the things with asking questions or having clients ask questions is they're not always comfortable in the way that we solicit those questions. So offer options like, if you have questions, raise your hand. If you have a question, put it in the chat, write it on a note card and send it up. Or let's work in a small group to talk about what questions you might have and then share them out. And also provide multiple routes to achieve the same learning objectives or tasks. This is especially important when working with youth because a lot of times we can get them to the point we want them to, but it isn't necessarily what we think of as the straight line. Final thoughts: recognize these approaches will be beneficial to everybody, not just neurodivergent clients. Be proactive in your programming. Build in the positive approaches that help neurodivergence. In the end, it will help all of your clients. So small bits of information, diverse instructional approaches, and be mindful that not everybody processes information the way that you do.